Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Deep Dive. I'm Harry, and well, I think it's safe to say we're all a little fascinated by the idea of aliens out there, right?
I'm Kimi, and you're right, Harry. It seems like no matter how much we learn about the universe, there's always that little part of us that wonders if we're really alone out there.
Exactly. And today we're diving deep into one of the most famous and controversial incidents in UFO history,
Yeah.
the Roswell incident, back in 1947.
Ah, yes, Roswell, where a weather balloon crashed. And
Well,
let's just say not everyone was convinced by that explanation.
yeah, and for good reason, the Roswell incident has become a kind of Rorschach test for people's beliefs about aliens, government cover-ups, and the whole shebang.
It's a story that's been told and retold, debated and dissected for over 70 years, and it still manages to capture our imagination.
So we've gathered a bunch of sources, including a very detailed Wikipedia article, to really try and unpack what went down in the New Mexico desert all those years ago.
We're going to look at the initial reports, the evidence, the various explanations, and of course, all the conspiracy theories that have sprung up around this event.
Because let's be honest, the Roswell incident is about a lot more than just a crashed object. It's about our hopes and fears, our fascination with the unknown, and maybe even our desire to believe in something bigger than ourselves.
Absolutely. And that's what makes it so fascinating to explore.
So to kick things off, let's rewind back to June of 1947, when a rancher named W. Mac Brazel discovered something pretty strange on his property near Corona, New Mexico.
Now, this wasn't exactly the classic flying saucer with flashing lights that you see in the movies, but it was definitely out of the ordinary.
So what did he find?
Well, he found scattered debris made of some pretty unusual materials for the time we're talking about tinfoil, rubber tape, and alongside those things, wooden beams.
Okay, so not your typical everyday stuff. And this was during a time when people were already on high alert for anything unusual in the skies.
Right. You see, just a few weeks before this incident, a pilot named Kenneth Arnold had reported seeing 9 unidentified flying objects near Mount Rainier, and that basically kickstarted the modern UFO craze.
So everyone was primed and ready to believe that maybe, just maybe, something truly extraterrestrial had landed in New Mexico.
And then to add fuel to the fire, the Roswell Army Airfield issued a press release that really sent the media into a frenzy.
What did they say?
Well, they announced that they had recovered a flying disc.
A flying disc.
Yeah, you can imagine the headlines, Army captures flying disc. It was huge news all over the world.
Wow, so they basically confirmed that it was a UFO.
Well, not so fast, because almost as quickly as they made that statement, they retracted it.
They took it back.
Yeah, they backpedaled and said it was all a misunderstanding and that the debris was actually from a weather balloon.
A weather balloon. Come on, that's a bit of a stretch, don't you think?
Definitely a little suspicious, and that sudden change in their story really only deepened the mystery and made people even more skeptical.
I mean, if it was just a simple weather balloon, why all this secrecy and sudden backtrack? It just doesn't add up.
Exactly, and that's what fueled the conspiracy theories for decades to come.
Because if it wasn't a weather balloon, then what was it?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
And that's what we're going to try and figure out today as we dig deeper into the Roswell incident. So the Roswell incident kind of faded from the public eye for a while, right?
Yeah, it did for a time. People moved on, other news stories took over, and the world kept spinning.
But the story didn't really go away, did it?
Not at all. It was like a seed that had been planted just waiting for the right conditions to sprout. And in 1978, it did just that.
What happened in 78?
Well, Jesse Marcel, the same major who was involved in the original investigation back in 47, he decided to speak out. And let me tell you, his story really shook things up.
He did. What did he say?
Well, he claimed that the weather balloon explanation that the Army had given all those years ago was actually a cover-up, a lie to hide the true nature of the debris.
Well, hold on. So he's saying it wasn't a weather balloon after all?
That's exactly what he was implying, and he even hinted that he believed the debris was actually of extraterrestrial origin.
No way he said that.
He did, and his statement was like a bombshell. It reignited public interest in Roswell big time, and suddenly everyone was talking about aliens again.
Wow. So it wasn't just a one-off incident. It became this huge ongoing mystery.
Exactly, and it started to get tangled up with all sorts of other UFO conspiracy theories that had been circulating in the meantime.
Like what?
Well, one of those theories that really added fuel to the Roswell fire was the Aztec, New Mexico crashed saucer hoax from 1948.
Aztec, New Mexico. I haven't heard of that one.
It was a completely fabricated story about a recovered alien spacecraft with You guessed it, alien bodies.
Alien bodies, that's pretty out there.
It was totally fake, but it introduced this idea into the public imagination. The idea that the government was recovering not just alien spacecraft, but alien beings too. And that idea would later become a central part of the Roswell narrative.
Right, because if there was a crashed spaceship, it stands to reason there might be aliens inside.
Exactly. And so we have this perfect storm brewing. You have the rancher finding strange debris. You have the Air Force cover up. And now you have the possibility of alien bodies thrown into the mix.
It's like the plot of a sci-fi movie.
And things just escalated from there with new witnesses coming forward, all claiming to have information about what really happened at Roswell.
Oh, really? So more people started speaking out.
They did. And each new account added another layer of intrigue to the mystery.
Do any of these accounts stand out?
One of the most compelling stories came from a guy named Glenn Dennis. He was a former mortician, and he claimed to have been contacted by the Air Base back in '47.
A mortician? Why would they contact a mortician?
Well, according to Dennis, they needed his expertise on body preservation, and he claimed they were asking about small, hermetically sealed caskets.
Hermetically sealed caskets. That's a little creepy.
Yeah, it is kind of chilling to think about what he might have seen or what he thought he saw. And even though his claims were later scrutinized and some details were proven false, they still added a whole new dimension to the Roswell saga.
Right, because it brought in the human element, the idea that there were actual beings involved, not just pieces of metal and debris.
Exactly. It made the story more real, more tangible. And
Yeah.
then, of course, there's the infamous Majestic 12.
Majestic 12, what's that?
That's the supposed secret government organization that was supposedly tasked with handling the Roswell crash and everything that came after it.
So like a Men in Black type of situation.
Kind of, yeah, except this was supposedly happening in the 40s and 50s, way before the Men in Black movie.
And was Majestic 12 real?
Well, documents supposedly detailing Majestic 12's activities did surface in the 1980s, but most people believe they were fabricated.
Fabricated, so fake.
Most likely.
Yeah.
But, the idea of this shadowy group within the government concealing the truth about aliens from the public was and still is just too tempting for a lot of people to resist.
It definitely plays into that fear of the unknown and the distrust of authority figures, right?
Absolutely. And it all came to a head in the 1990s when the Air Force, facing mounting pressure from Congress and the public, decided to launch investigations and issue reports addressing the Roswell incident once and for all.
So they finally decided to come clean about what really happened.
Well, sort of. They acknowledged that the initial weather balloon explanation was a cover story.
A cover story, but not to hide aliens.
Nope. According to their reports, the debris was actually from a top-secret military surveillance program called Project Mogul.
Project Mogul, that sounds pretty intense.
It was pretty wild, actually. They were using these high-altitude balloons that were equipped with microphones, really sensitive ones, to try and monitor Soviet nuclear tests.
Wow, so like a Cold War spy operation.
Exactly. It was all very hush-hush, top-secret stuff. And these balloons, they were made from some unusual materials, things like the tinfoil and the rubber that were found at the crash site.
So their explanation was basically a combination of Cold War paranoia and some really advanced technology.
Yeah, pretty much. And, it does make sense when you think about it.
But what about the alien bodies? Did they address that too?
Oh, yeah, they did. They suggested that those stories about alien bodies were probably based on misidentified military personnel or even test dummies that were being used in high-altitude parachute experiments.
Test dummies. So people might have mistaken a dummy for an alien.
It's possible, especially if they were already expecting to see something extraterrestrial.
Right. Because our minds can play tricks on us, especially when we're dealing with something as unknown and mysterious as aliens.
Exactly. And even though the Air Force tried to set the record straight, Roswell has kind of taken on a life of its own. It's become this modern myth, this story that people just can't seem to let go of.
And it's not hard to see why it taps into our deepest fears and fascinations. Those anxieties about what the government might be hiding from us, and that eternal question of whether or not we're alone in the universe.
It's the ultimate mystery, isn't it? And Roswell has become a symbol of that mystery.
And it's had a huge impact on our culture too, right?
Yeah.
I mean, think about all the books and movies and TV shows that have been inspired by the Roswell incident.
It's everywhere from the X-Files to Independence Day to even those cheesy alien-themed diners you see on Route 66.
It's become part of our collective imagination. It's shaped how we view the possibility of life beyond Earth.
And even the town of Roswell has embraced its connection to the incident, right? It's become a tourist destination, a place where people go to experience a little bit of that alien mystique.
Yeah, you can't go to Roswell without seeing a little Green Man souvenir or a UFO-themed burger joint. It's become part of their identity.
And in a way, I think it's become a Rorschach test for our beliefs. Some people see Roswell as definitive proof that aliens have visited Earth, while others see it as a cautionary tale about the dangers of misinformation and conspiracy theories.
It all comes down to how you interpret the evidence and what you're willing to believe.
And I think that's what makes it so fascinating to discuss, because it forces us to confront our own biases and assumptions about the world.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground today, from the initial incident to the evolving narrative to the Air Force's explanation, and it's clear that the Roswell incident is a story that will continue to be debated and analyzed for years to come.
It's a story that refuses to die.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, we'd love to hear your thoughts. What do you believe happened at Roswell? Is it a case of government cover-up or just a simple case of mistaken identity? And why do you think this incident continues to captivate our imaginations after all these years?
Let us know your thoughts in the comments below.
And thanks for joining us on the deep dive. Keep those minds curious and those eyes on the skies. You never know what we might discover out there.